Welcome to California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. This is an episode you do not want to miss. I am telling you, you will be inspired by the people that join us today. Quick story, you know we have a Sacramento bureau. I was traveling to Sacramento. I ran into an old friend of mine, Edition Foreman. I saw her at the airport and she was with a bunch of students. And I thought, what is she doing here? It winds up she was taking, I think it's 5 students from the Windward School in Los Angeles to testify before assembly committees about a bill the students had dreamed up, had hatched. Literally, and you'll see why that's a play on words. We have all 5 students here. We have the teacher who helped them hatch this idea here, and of course, the sponsor of the bill. His name is Assemblyman Ian Calderon. Good to see you, sir. We appreciate you joining us. We'll get to you in a moment. I want to start with Geraldine Lovelace, the teacher from the Windward School, the science teacher. In 7th grade, which is 2 years ago, you got these 5 students who hatched this idea. How did this happen?
So we were actually doing a project called Challenge-Based Learning, where I asked the students to improve the health of their community through food. So they had options. First, we explored all different types of food issues, health issues, and community issues. And then students were asked to see what interests them and what could they take on and fix and really make a difference in their community.
So then Aaron Foreman, he opened his mouth, I guess you could say, because he had seen, what had you seen, Aaron?
So I originally came up with the idea from an ad on the Foster Farms website.
And let's take a look at that ad. It's quite humorous.
I don't know, Doc. I feel all bloaty.
That's because I plumped you. I plumped you good. I injected you with salt water. So not only do you look plumper, you also weigh more. So people have to pay more. A lot of chickens have it done.
Are Foster Farms chickens plumped with salt water?
Yeah, Doc, because we want to look naturally plump.
Hey, Marcy, do these chickens look naturally plump?
Yes, very natural.
Although we could go plumper.
Say no to plumping. Foster Farms, always natural, always fresh.
Oh my, Aaron. Okay, so you're interested in plumping. What exactly is plumping? The ad kind of described it, but give us a better sense.
Well, plumping is a process in which a company will inject salt water, seaweed extract, and they put that into the chicken, and that just increases the weight of the chicken, so the consumer then has to pay up to 15% for just salt water.
And so you brought some labels of this plump chicken. Geraldine, what does it show, these labels?
It shows that about 15% of the weight of the chicken and 15% of the ingredients is this seaweed stock. Sometimes it's plain salt water,
right.
And that extremely affects the sodium content of the chicken.
And that's how you got involved, Mr. Calderon. Talk to us about how Aaron Foreman and his colleagues got to you.
Well, it's actually kind of an interesting story.
Right.
You know, I knew Adine, and this was the time during my campaign, and,
right.
and she had told me about this
Adine's
idea.
Aaron's mother.
Yes, and she told me about this idea, so we went to Windward Academy, and I was in the room. I wasn't an assembly member, I was just a candidate. And the Poultry Federation was there, and they started talking about this project and a piece of legislation that they wanted to craft so that they could take plump chicken out of school so that kids were not getting this plump chicken because it was so unhealthy due to the inflated sodium.
And let's talk about that. What exactly is the health risk to those that consume plumped chicken?
Plump chicken can be up to 15% salt water. This means it can have up to 400 milligrams of sodium, anywhere between 200 and 500 really. And that is extremely bad for health, for students and adults, and it can increase your sodium intake by large amounts.
But Geraldine, your intent was not, there ought to be a bill. I mean, how did we get from, let's do a little science project, to there ought to be a bill, and Ian Calderon's involved?
When they told me that, I was so inspired. I was a bit floored. I had to do a little bit of research myself on what the bill process looks like, going back to my high school and college days.
And you're a science teacher,
yes.
Not a government teacher.
So I was really with them, helping them fact check along the way. But again, the freedom that they had with this type of learning model really asks them to dig deep into the content. So they can go as far as they want an idea, as long as it's based in science and it's really to make a positive change within the community.
And so, Assemblyman, you were talking with Edition Foreman, Aaron's mother, during the campaign. You were successful. You're in your first term now. What happened then?
What happened then is you know, I won. And when I won, I remembered going to the school, meeting the kids, and I said, I want this to be one of my first pieces of legislation that I carry as a California State Assembly member.
I'm literally rendered speechless. I mean, How did you find this out? What happened next?
Well, I originally met Ian at the California State Democratic Convention in San Diego, and that was when I first told him. That was when I first told him about our idea. And I also met with a few other members, both of Congress, of the State Assembly, and everyone really seemed to like it. They all thought it was a good idea. They thought it was amazing how a group of 7th grade students could do that. And we gained support from the California Poultry Federation. They've been a huge help throughout the process, and it's moved very far along through it.
Yeah, and let's talk about getting the Poultry Federation involved, because that obviously was a major piece in this puzzle. Was that something, Geraldine, that you suggested, or Assemblyman, did you say, well, maybe we should get them involved? Because if they opposed it, that would have been a problem, presumably.
From the beginning, we wanted the students to have support in their movement. So I helped them get the facts together, but then immediately they were looking for allies. Who could they get to on their side to sponsor the bill and to carry the bill through, who really believed in the bill, and that was Assemblymember Calderon.
But it's actually kind of funny. I would have thought, and help me out, sir, that the Poultry Federation would oppose this bill, because plumping allows them to increase the price. Yeah, Aaron's shaking his head, so disabuse me.
Well, the one thing that we did learn through this process was that, you know, it's the California Poultry Federation, and you know they take care of, you know, companies operating within poultry manufacturers operating within the borders of the state. None of the companies here that produce poultry actually take part in the process of plumping.
Interesting. Why? Do you know, Aaron, why that is?
I think it's just they care about the communities more, and they're not. They would rather give a product that is better. It helps communities rather than, you know, companies from out of California who would not who just want the profit.
And it's interesting because I was reading up about the plumping process, and part of the defense of it was, well, it tastes good. I mean, let's face it, salt water, it's going to make it taste a little bit better. And so how did you come to realize that plumping was on the rise? Because that's part of the issue, is that it's not as if this is something that's been going on for years, but it's an increasing problem, if I can use that term.
Yeah, well, I think if it means it tastes better, then people who think it tastes better should know, and they should have the information if they want to make that decision.
And it's funny, please, Geraldine, go.
So where they initially started with was, it was a problem how deceptive the labeling is. So that people who knew that the chicken was being plumped, it was a very small percentage of people.
But it's also, I mean,
it was very small on the label.
Tiny.
And a lot of the packaging, and this is what the boys brought to me, which I was so surprised by and thought that really needed to be a change and a focus for their project, was it's a very small print, and it can still say all natural on the labeling, even if it's been plumped, as long as it's been plumped with seaweed extract. So. Wow.
But you decided to take the path not of labeling, but of actually banning plumped chicken. Sir, you know, talk to us about that thought process.
And so, you know, when we were crafting the piece of legislation, I mean, the idea is that we all assume that when we buy chicken or turkey and we have these, you know, our kids consuming these products in the store, in their schools, that it's natural chicken, because it's saying that it's natural chicken, but that's not necessarily the case. And so essentially what the bill does is bans this process. Oh, no, excuse me, it doesn't ban the process. It bans state-owned or leased from facilities from buying either chicken or turkey that had been plumbed doing this process.
That's simple, and that's a bold step. I mean, you could have pushed for better labeling, but you decided to go all the way. And so when we come back, we're going to speak with two other students from the Windward School. We're going to talk about how these students went to Sacramento. They actually testified before an assembly committee. Ian Calderon was there to support them as they spoke to these members of the state legislature. My name is Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on California Edition.
American consumers are spending how much additional money on plumped chicken per year? 500 million, 1 billion, 2 billion, or $2.5 billion? The USDA has estimated that plumping is costing American consumers an additional $2 billion per year.
Welcome back. It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Yes, we are still joined by Ian Calderon, member of the California State Assembly. Now we have two other students from the Windward School. We have Charlie Foster. We have Dylan Bala. They were part of the Brain Trust that has been working to get a bill passed that would preclude state-funded facilities from buying plumped chicken that is injected with saltwater seawater. Okay, so you draft the bill, Mr. Calderon. Then you have the option to have certain people testify before the various committees. Explain.
So the first committee that we go to, which is a policy committee, is Accountability Administrative Review. I do sit on that committee as a member, but whenever you come to present a bill, whether you're a member of that committee or not, you have to sit in front of the committee and present your bill. And through that process, you get witnesses. I had the Poultry Federation there to testify as a witness in support of the bill.
Which would make sense.
Which would make sense, but I also had all the students with me. But we're limited on time.
Okay.
And so because we're limited on time, they had to make one succinct speech, but break it up between each child.
Okay, we got to talk about this because this is blowing my mind that you were in 8th grade and you are testifying before a California Assembly Committee. When this happened, it was last year, right? So
yeah.
Yes, you were in 8th, because now you're in 9th, right?
Yeah.
So you were in 8th grade when it happened. Let's back up for a second because I saw you at the airport. Wow, I mean, how did you find out you were even going to be testifying before Ian and the rest of the committee? Do you remember?
It was a while ago, but I believe Aaron Foreman sent out a group message.
Right.
Yeah, and we were ecstatic.
Floored.
Yeah.
So you get on the plane. Talk to us about the trip up to Sacramento.
Well, honestly, we were all very excited to be there. You know, it was really inspiring because not only with science, but even in history, we were learning, you know, the process of a bill and how it gets to become a law. And we thought, like, we got to do this.
We're going to do this. And what's so great is one of the parents were there and was documenting the entire trip. Now, not only did you get to testify, but you had the chance to have kind of meetings and briefings. I know you started with, I think his name is Bill Matos, did I say that correctly?
Yes.
With the Poultry Federation, and didn't he bring you some kind of these stuffed chickens or whatever it was?
Certainly did.
Tell us also about meeting with the various members, because of course you were with Mr. Calderon, but you had a chance to meet with several members of the legislature. Charlie, give us a sense of that.
So after we testified, we
which we'll talk about in a second, but tell us about some of those meetings.
We walked around the Capitol building and we annoyed politicians.
Oh,
and it was,
you so didn't annoy them, but you've got a good sense of humor. You met with the Speaker of the State Assembly, John Perez, and I mean, it looks like, sir, he gave you a nice amount of time. I mean, what did he say to you? I mean, don't tell, just between us, not in front of everyone else. What did he say?
Do you
remember?
I think so. I believe he was, you know, he was pretty impressed. You know, we came up and testified, and we're going through with this bill, and yeah, he looks impressed.
You also met with Isidore Hall, one of your colleagues. You met with Adrien Nazarian. You met with, I mean, it's a long list of folks. Senator Ted Lieu, Assemblyman Anthony Renton, who I believe was a co-sponsor. Is that right? Is it normal that you get to meet all these members, sir? I mean, is that a normal day in the life?
It's extremely difficult, and especially for, you know, at the time where they were there, we have every 15 minutes we have a new group coming in to talk to us, and so it gets difficult to try and, you know, set time aside to do certain things, but, you know, when you have kids their age, engaged in the process and wanting to make a difference, not for themselves, but for just the greater good and for the state and for all kids, you can't turn that down, and you want to know more and you want to know how you can help.
And so talk to us about why you decided to do this. I mean, Aaron talked a bit about it, but I mean, there are bona fide health concerns that you have. Tell us about those, Dylan.
Well, it was certainly primarily a health concern with the 7th grade project, and when we found this issue of chicken plumping, we were surprised. You know, we knew there was something that had to be done about it, and especially because people didn't know with these tiny labels where, like, most people had no idea of what they were eating. So, you know, we knew we had to do something about this.
And Charlie, I know you were kind of focused on the fiscal side, the financial side.
Yeah. So saltwater makes up about $1.50 of every plumped poultry product.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that accounts for it's $127 a year for a family.
For salt water.
Yeah, for salt water.
Which
exactly
doesn't really seem fair. I think it's fair to say. So I want to talk about the testimony. We have pictures of you kind of before the testimony. I mean, you must have been like a proud papa in a way as they walk in to offer testimony.
Well, at the time, I was the youngest member of the legislature.
That's a very good point, right?
And so for me...
And you're young as well to start.
Yeah, I am. And
you're one of the newest and the youngest.
Right, I am. And so to have them up here, so significantly younger than myself, but yet having such a great knowledge of an issue, something that they've worked through, and now coming before a legislative committee to give testimony. I mean, I can't tell you the responses I was getting afterwards from the members, just like, oh my God, they did amazing. Who are these kids?
How many on that committee? I'm trying to think.
There's north of 10.
Okay, I saw Kristen Olson in the pictures. It's hard to tell who was there, but I mean, it was, okay. Tell me about the moment, guys, when you actually had to sit there and testify before a committee.
It was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
I just remember being so nervous, but so...
Yeah. Energized?
Energized. And I was just so thankful. You made it all possible.
All right. Oh, that's kind. What about you, Dylan? How was that for you?
It was truly inspiring to go up there and, have speak our minds about this issue. I mean, it was just to go up in front of everyone and, tell them about, like, what was going on and what needed to be done about it. It was an amazing experience.
What did you expect, and how did it meet your expectations?
We didn't know what to expect.
Right.
We went up there and we just, whatever happened, we knew what happened. We had no idea what the committee thought about the bill yet, what the primary or the main issues that were going to come up, the opposition.
Do they ask questions, sir? Is there a question and answer period, or is it simply testimony?
No, absolutely is a question and answer period. And I don't quite remember had they asked any questions, although I do know that they had made comments in favor of the bill.
Right.
Not only in favor of the bill as it being a good idea, but they also made comments in favor of the students and their ability to come up with this idea and provide excellent testimony.
Okay, so the day is over, and I guess you guys celebrated because I got pictures of you celebrating in a limousine. I mean, what was that like to be able to know that, we did it, we're done, and off we go?
It was amazing just to come home on our way home and be like, wow, like we got this through a committee. Like
exactly.
This bill is like partway through to.
And how was the response? How has the response been at school?
Well,
what do people think?
Well, we do get to brag about it.
I was going to say, I mean, you're on television and you're able to talk about testifying before a committee in Sacramento. Shock, surprise, pride. What were people saying, and have they been saying?
It has been pride, really, because it's not every day that people as young as we get to go up and make a difference.
So let's talk about the process. So they offered their testimony. Was there a vote in that committee?
Yes, there was.
And the vote in that committee was?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. That's impressive. I mean, to get Democrats and Republicans to agree on anything is quite remarkable. But you've taught us that you don't just go to one committee. There are several committees with jurisdiction. And then went to Assembly Education. And what was the vote in that committee?
Unanimous.
Yeah, I mean, that really is remarkable. So you're now 2 committees in, you have unanimous support. The kicker is always getting through appropriations. What will the Appropriations Committee say? Because appropriations focuses upon what, sir?
Fiscal impact to the state.
And it's that basic. And so a lot of folks say that the Appropriations Committee is where bills go to die. And we'll talk about what happened to your bill when we come back. Whatever the end result is, and you'll find out in a moment, I'm blown away however it ends. Because like you said, Charlie, to be able to get this through any committee in Sacramento is remarkable. My name is Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on California Edition.
What percentage of Americans' sodium intake comes from processed foods? 33%, 50%, 60%, or 70%? 70% of our sodium intake derives from processed foods.
Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and we are joined, of course, by Ian Calderon, member of the California State Assembly, and two other students from Windward School, Ryan Eveloff and Cole Greenlee, part of the brain trust of 5, who decided they wanted to have a ban placed on the purchase of plumped chicken by state-operated and owned facilities. So we learned before the break that two assembly committees passed the bill, which you drafted unanimously, but then we have to go to appropriations. Explain, sir.
So you go to appropriations. The Accountability Administrative Review and Education Committee are policy committees where you view the bill strictly as a policy and whether you agree if it's a good policy or not. Then it goes to the Committee on Appropriations. Not every bill goes to the Committee on Appropriations, just bills that are deemed fiscal, meaning that they have some type of a fiscal impact on the state.
So before telling us what happened, what did the committee determine in terms of the fiscal impact?
In terms of the fiscal impact, they said that there was absorbable costs with around $190,000 to the department and to the state and to the departments. However, they did recognize in their own analysis that it would cost the state, or specifically our schools, in the millions to implement this piece of legislation.
Their concern was that if they couldn't buy plumped chicken, that the non-plumped chicken could be more expensive, and or they would be precluded from certain federal programs which may or may not include plumped chicken, but there'd be no way to determine that. But Cole, you feel that for the greater good, this bill matters. Explain.
Yeah, I felt that that I'm helping students across California and Los Angeles, particularly kids who get the lunch meals through their schools, who don't have a choice of what they're getting.
And so you want to speak on behalf of the students.
Right.
What's your sense as well, Ryan? Why do you believe that this matters?
I really believe that those kids who are on those, fixed income lunch programs where it's kind of like, here's your chicken, here's your fries, here's your fruit, now next in line. So those people, they can't really control what they eat at lunch every day at school because either they don't have the money, they don't have the ingredients near their homes. So we're really just trying to make it easier for them to have a healthy alternative to just, kind of basically eating salt water.
Right, and that was part of the issue. Explain the USDA concern that the Assembly Appropriations Committee had.
Essentially, the concern was that a lot of our schools participate in a program that is controlled by the USDA, and there is no way to determine whether or not a chicken or turkey product that they're getting through the program was plumped or not.
Right.
And so their concern was because it was going to cost so much more for them to now no longer be a part of that program, that they would either only take the products like red meat, which are known to be more unhealthy products, and serve those as opposed to chicken and turkey, or they would essentially just cut the product out altogether.
So ultimately, what was the decision of the Appropriations Committee?
The Appropriations Committee decided at this point in time that they were going to hold the bill in committee. Now,
which means
essentially it kills the bill because we're in a 2-year legislative session. This was a 2-year bill. This is the last year of that legislative session. So as if we were in the first year, it would just roll over into a 2-year bill. But because this is the last year, it will die at the end of the year because it didn't meet the timelines of the House of Origin, and therefore I would have to reintroduce the bill next year.
So how did you feel, Ryan, when you heard that the Assembly Appropriations Committee killed your bill?
Well, at first I was kind of hopeful, like, oh, it's just put in suspense. Maybe
it sounds like it could survive.
Yeah, suspense does not mean dead.
Right.
But then I realized, wait a second, we only have, a little while left until it's dead, so it's probably dead.
Right.
I mean, that cost, like those numbers in the millions just really surprised me because you're paying, like, basically nothing for the chicken now. This is the schools. And they'd be paying, millions of dollars instead of that little or no cost every year, which really surprised me because I thought it would barely cost anything because that 15% is an extra cost.
Right.
And taking out the plumping would
You would have thought it would be a cost savings.
Yeah.
But because of, I guess one could argue, the lack of transparency on plumping, there'd be no way to figure out whether something's plumped, and so in order to comply with the law, they wouldn't have to be able to take it at all.
Right. I mean, essentially, we got put in a bad situation because this was turned into a 2-year bill, and just before, actually, about a week before going into the Appropriations Committee, we learned of opposition from the School Nutritionist Association, and for them, their point of view was, well, you're going to hurt lower income families because there's a lot of kids that come to school who don't get these products at home, so they get them at school. But if you do this, you're going to raise the cost. Schools aren't going to provide these products anymore, so these kids lower income communities aren't going to get it. And for them, their argument also was that they don't control what they get. They're nutritionists that don't control what they get when it comes to the school because it's done through the USDA federal program, and so products are coming in without knowledge of what it actually is.
Cole, what do you think when you heard that Approps killed the bill because of what Mr. Calderon described?
Well, at first I was kind of mad because we had gone so far, but to look back at it, I was very happy that we even got to do this in the first place.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was very happy.
But guess what? I understand you guys aren't done. I understand that there are steps that can be taken to keep this issue alive, keep the bill alive, but what's next?
Well, really, we might turn it into a federal bill, try to take that path down.
Just a federal bill, that's all. You might go to the U.S. Congress.
Yeah, just a tiny little bill.
But if you know, what exactly would you be seeking from federal legislation? Because it's not really the same thing. Is that right, sir? Yeah.
We may be trying to go for a label change. Right now, those little labels that say 15% added saltwater, seaweed extract, etc., those really are, maybe like an inch by an inch tops.
Right.
We want to make it so it's easy to see, so those people who make the choice to have plum chicken know they're making that choice, and the people who do not know that they are not and are happy with it.
What about, Cole, if I may, the question of the USDA using plum chicken? Is that something you'd like to attack? Potentially.
Yeah, maybe.
These are all new issues. This recently happened, so I'm surely throwing stuff at you that hasn't necessarily been considered. But what about that whole notion of the USDA and that they accept plum chicken?
I think, personally, I don't think it should be accepted. It sounds very bad for you. It sounds like something
one could argue
that shouldn't be.
All that salt?
Yeah.
What's your sense, Ian? I understand that you're still looking to work with the students, help the students out. Where do you go from here?
Look, I'm going to help these guys out in any way that I possibly can because I believe it's a good issue. It is a good issue. It was well-intentioned and, quite honestly, to me, really pointed out more systemic issues within our system and our federal system that kind of prevents us from being able to protect our kids from receiving these types of products. And I think what gets really frustrating with regards to government is that, this is a common sense issue. You know it, they know it, we all know that this is a good thing. But yet, for some reason, we get stuck in all the mucky-muck right down here, and we cannot penetrate that. And so I think that it was a noble cause, and I'm going to continue to work with them in any capacity that they want to continue to work on this issue. But I think that their heads are in the right spot. Their hearts were definitely in the right place, and they're smart, bright young kids. And I think that we're going to expect to see a lot of good things coming from these kids.
So what do you want to do next?
Well, I'm very happy, I'm sure as Cole as well, that we want to move it into the federal level.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it really is. And my guess is you'll wind up testifying before Congress. But that's just a prediction.
I can barely believe that we made it through state so far.
Exactly.
And we really just want to make a difference in schools everywhere, hopefully California at least, and kind of, publicize the fact that people are paying extra for chicken, it's terrible for them, and that they don't know it.
Are you ready to keep going, Cole? I mean, are you ready to just keep... Because, look, this was a 7th grade project. You guys are 9th grade right now. I mean, is this going to last through your entire career at Windward?
I hope it does.
Really?
It's so far been really fun to do. And I think it'd be interesting if we took it.
Yeah, one could say that. One could say it'd be
Very
interesting. So, what next? Do you know yet? I mean, it's early. Do you have a sense yet, or you're still kind of in the determination phase, the strategy phase?
Well, I mean, I think, there's no reason to become discouraged because, a bill got held in committee. I mean, that's not the first time. I mean, this year we passed AB 60 giving a driver's license to immigrants.
No one thought that would happen.
Years and years and years.
I want to thank you for joining us, Assemblyman Calderon. I want to thank all the students from Windward for joining us. Congratulations. Tremendous success. You should be very, very pleased. My name is Brad Pomerance. Thank you so much for watching California Edition.